They don't even know if the industry is going to survive. Well, let me step back for a second, take a minute, and just talk about that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to give an opinion on the actual litigation. For the last 20 years, I sold my real estate company back in 2005. So for the last 18 years, I've really concentrated on helping agents understand how the economy impacts the housing market. So I've been out of the brokerage business for 18 years, and because of that, I don't really follow it that well. Since I've done no research nor any study on the litigation, I don't really feel that I have an informed opinion on it. But what I do have a very strong opinion about is the industry as a whole. There are two things that make an industry viable, that enable an industry to exist and to prosper. The first thing is they have to have a product or service that fills a need of the consumer. The second thing they need is a customer base that's willing to pay a fair value for that product or service. If an industry has those two things, they're fine. So let's take a look at real estate. We definitely have a service that fills a need because over 90% of the people that buy or sell a house use our services. And for over 100 years, they've been willing to pay fair market value for that service. So do I think that the industry itself is in jeopardy? Absolutely not. Do I think we'll have to evolve? Sure. We've been evolving for the 35 years I've been in the business. So I don't want you to spend too much time thinking about that. Let your broker, your leader, your local board, let them come up with the decisions as to what's the next step. Your job is to help families, help individuals, whether they're looking to buy or sell a house. Let them take care of their job and listen to them when they give you direction. And let's go do our job. Our job is to go out, find families that need our help, and help them. Will the industry evolve? Of course it will. Will the industry disappear? Of course it won't. Now to the MMR, the monthly market report. As we always start, most agents know what's happening. Good agents understand what's happening. Great agents can explain what's happening. And that's exactly what KCM is all about, explaining what's happening. And that's not an easy task in today's environment. As a matter of fact, Sean Dobson, the CEO of Amherst, I think he put it really well. I'd say whatever our forecast is, talking about his forecast going forward, it has a wider range of error than it normally would have. Right. We're just at a point in the housing market to where I don't think anyone really knows, to tell you the truth. But we can't ignore the inventory remains down over 40% since pre-pandemic. What is he saying? Two things. Number one, no one really knows for sure what's going to happen next. We can make some good guesses, but we have to realize they're guesses. Number two is the only thing we know for sure, there's not enough inventory out there. If there's not enough inventory out there, that guarantees two things. Number one, prices won't crash, because this is a supply and demand issue with any price on any item. And number two, we have to find more listings. Both of those things are true. Now, going back to home prices, let's take a look at what's happening with home prices. The Case-Shiller report just came out last week. And what we can see on the seasonally adjusted numbers, and it's important that we understand the seasonally adjusted numbers compared to what should be, they were up 0.9%. Usually it's the time of year where they actually start, the level of appreciation starts decelerating. I'm not saying red bars. What I'm saying is those green bars will get smaller. That didn't happen with the Case-Shiller report, and we're kind of interested because some people are talking about a reacceleration of home prices. I don't wish that. I don't think that, but there are people talking about it. The FHFA price index came out also, and they're showing something more what I thought would happen. Prices as we come later into the year are starting to moderate. The level of appreciation is starting to moderate, and that's a good thing. If we look at the three indexes that we like to depend on the most, Case-Shiller, FHFA, and CoreLogic, they're all kind of showing the same thing. Now, I will tell you that the CoreLogic is not seasonally adjusted. That's why the numbers will be a little different than the other two indexes. But what we can see overall, at the beginning of last year, we had very strong appreciation. At the end of last year, there was a correction to that too strong appreciation. And now we're going back to normal appreciation levels. And is it widespread? That's a question everyone always asks. I'm not saying this is happening in Austin. I'm not saying this is happening in Boise. I know some people are looking at New Orleans now and saying, well, there seems to be some trepidation there on prices. But overall, what we're seeing is very strong price appreciation for this time of year, especially. As a matter of fact, if we look at the Case-Shiller home price index, 9 of the 20 metros that they cover, 9 of them had 1% appreciation or more just last month. And the most interesting thing is places like Vegas and Los Angeles and San Diego and Seattle that really took a hit last winter are coming back strong. So I think that what we can say from this is, you know what? It looks like prices are not going to crash. And if anything, they're going to stay right on normal appreciation. And that's exactly what we want, a normal market. We've had, between the pandemic, between what happened last year, we've had a lot of craziness in the market. Going back to normal will help all of us, including the consumer. The FHFA month-over-month price change, in 8 of the 9 regions they cover, there was positive. The only region that wasn't positive was in the South Atlantic. Now, I will tell you, price will be determined by supply and demand. And what's happening in the South Atlantic? Builders are building like crazy. So because builders are building like crazy, there's more opportunity there. And that means that there's more inventory. If we have more supply and demand remains the same, prices will moderate to some degree. Not a big degree. And last month, the South Atlantic was actually up. So we'll keep on following that. But basically, both price indexes are saying the same thing. Things are good. And Black Knight, in their mortgage monitor, looked at prices. And for the second month in a row, home price growth trended higher in every one of the 50 largest U.S. metros, mirroring the sharp re-acceleration at the national level. They're actually seeing prices picking up right now. And to that point, Selma Hepp, who was the chief economist at CoreLogic, nevertheless, home prices are still expected to re-accelerate and reach mid-single-digit growth rate by the end of the year, according to their home price index forecast. So what are we looking for as far as prices are concerned? They're strong. My fear is not that they're going to be weak. My fear is going to be that they might be a little bit too strong, especially if they re-accelerate. With the affordability issue being what it is today, all right, I'm not looking for tremendous price growth. I'm looking for steady price growth, normal price growth. Talking about normal price growth, let's take a look at what's going to take place going forward. All right, the 49-year average. This is non-seasonally adjusted, so these numbers will differ a little bit from the seasonally adjusted index that I showed you a couple of slides back. This is over the last 49 years, what happens every month to home prices. That's the average, the 49-year average. And so what we can see is early in the year, as I said before, prices or appreciation starts to accelerate going into the buying season. And then once the buying season is over, they start to decelerate. And by the end of the year, where there's a lot less demand, prices start to decelerate to the point that it's coming real close to that zero line. And that's the last 49 years. Where do we stand right now compared to that? Well, if we take a look at prices month over month, non-seasonally adjusted, what we can see is, all right, here we have the 49-year average, which are the black bars, and what actually happened in 2023, which are the green bars. We started out the year slow. We didn't match normal appreciation for those first 2 months. Then we got a little too strong. But now what we're seeing is we're going back to more normal appreciation. July and August. And remember, when you're dealing with the repeat sales index, there's a delay because they have to do all the work to really compare like houses. It's the best index. Sure, it's a little bit slow in coming to the market, but you have a choice. You could look at median prices, which are not a good indicator of price movement right now, but you get it right away. So you could either be quick and wrong, or you could take a little time to be right. I decided to take a little time to be right at KCM because I think being right is much more important than being quick. All right. So what we can see again is we're going back to normal levels of appreciation. And again, I think that's a good thing because that will impact affordability. Because affordability, as we know right now, is in a crisis mode. There are a whole bunch of young people, a whole bunch of old people, there are a whole bunch of families that have the dream of the American dream of home ownership, but they can't attain it right now. If we look at monthly mortgage payments, look how much they've increased since January 2021, even how much they've increased since January 2022, even how much they've increased since January of this year. And we can see that there's a major challenge there. Interest rates are nowhere near where they were the last several years. We could take a look at the bottom coming from 2018 through 2020, actually 2016, but the way it's broken down is it lines up right with the end of that particular year. But we can see that was all under 5%. From 2016 all the way to 2022, mortgage rates stayed under 5%. Then in 2022, they shot up. And now they're going even higher than that. Now, we did get a reprieve. There was a reprieve this past weekend. Again, I'm recording this on Monday, November 6th, where mortgage rates actually dropped significantly from a month before. There wasn't a lot of press on it. There weren't a lot of people. Maybe they're a little nervous about making that decision. But the important thing that we realize is they were heading in the right direction. All right. We actually came down about a half a point from the highs of over 8%. They finished this past Friday at 7.38%. As a matter of fact, we gave you a graph showing just that. We compared 2016 through 2022, and those are the orange bars down below and the blue bar up above. So well above anything a lot of millennials and Gen Xers have been seeing over the last couple of years. And if we take a look at it by decade, we can also see that we go all the way back to the 2000s and mortgage rates weren't this high. So what we have is a situation that the mortgage rate is really impacting affordability in a very, very, very big way. Now, the interesting thing is, well, people say, well, no one's going to buy a house. Understand, ladies and gentlemen, what you sell is a major piece of the American dream. People are not going to lose interest in that. As a matter of fact, through all this flux, let's take a look at how many people were planning to buy a home in the next 12 months, the percentage. And this is a survey from the Housing Trends Report at the National Association of Home Builders. And what we could see is things were going down 18 into 19. And then, obviously in the first quarter of 2020, we had the pandemic. Then all of a sudden things shot out. They settled back out from that big jump up because of the pandemic buying. And then they bounced around. But ladies and gentlemen, if you look from 2020 to now, that's not going down. If you look from just 2023, what we're seeing is it's bouncing up and down. That if people were no longer interested in buying a house, that line would be down, headed toward the bottom right-hand corner, not the upper right-hand corner. So the desire is there, and how can we fill that desire? Well, for a lot of people, you can't do it because of the affordability issue. So we have to come up with different ideas. One of the things we think keeping current matters is multi-generational living can be an answer. Right? We believe the answer to that question is yes. Now, some of you are going to say, wait a minute, you're saying I have to live with my mom and dad? Wait a second, you're saying me and my wife have to live with my son and daughter and my grandkids? That ain't never going to work. And for a lot of people, it's not going to work. I'm not saying it's going to work for everyone. But a study done by Pew Research says that it works for a lot more people than maybe we would have thought it would. This is the most multi-generational occupants C positives. This is the percentage who find living with adult family members, whether it be an adult child or a parent, to be blank most of the time. 58% said it's convenient most of the time. And if we think about that, that makes sense. The young couple who has a couple of kids, they have a built-in babysitter. They can go out for a romantic dinner. They can go away for a romantic weekend. And the grandparents can spend time with the grandkids. For the grandparents, usually as they get empty nesters, what do they bring in? Pets. What's the biggest challenge for them? If they want to go away for a weekend or go away for some time, who's going to watch the pets? Well, they have built-in pet sitters. This is important that we realize it's convenient for a lot of people. Another thing, more than 50% said most of the time it's rewarding. Imagine grandparents, their adult children, and their grandchildren all living together, helping each other out. Isn't that what family is about? So I do think this is something that we should take a look at and something that we should really grab hold of. Not for everyone. Look at the last bar. 23% find it stressful. So obviously, if you hate your parents, don't move in with them. If you hate your adult kids, don't move in with them. But if you don't trust your adult kids to raise your grandchildren, which a lot of grandparents are in that category, sort of, kind of, half joking, half not, then this makes perfect sense because the grandparents could spend more time with their grandkids. Triangle Business Journal. The circumstances over the past few years between the 2008 financial crisis and COVID-19 pandemic have changed the way families are buying houses. According to data from the National Association of Realtors, multi-generational buying rose to an all-time high in 2022, 14%. Compare that to 2021, when this option was at 11%. So what we're really talking about is about a 30% increase in the number of people that are buying multi-generational homes. And more than 1 out of 10 houses that are sold are multi-generational homes. Tremendous opportunity. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that the industry needs opportunity right now. We need to find a way to build transactions right now. And maybe this is a cohort, a group of people that we didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about over the last couple of years. Maybe the time's come to help them. This is from Pew Research. Multi-generational living has increased among all age groups over the past 5 decades, but the increase has been fastest among adults ages 25 to 34. Ladies and gentlemen, this could be one of the answers toward the affordability challenge that millennials are facing right now. And people jump out on this already. Builders are now developing multi-generational floor plans that include designs with 2 master suites, including main floor suites with kitchenettes. Many offer shared spaces for gathering as the extended family, while also providing additional privacy when it's needed most. Some include flex space that can shift from a family office to a nursery to give you the ability to adapt. Some include detached casitas, living options for even more privacy for your family. So whether it's attached and you're living in a house with a separate thing, or a detached, which in most of the country is known as an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit. And ladies and gentlemen, why am I pushing this right now? Because people are leaning this way very strongly. As a matter of fact, the Federal Housing Administration just came out this past month, and they expanded the access to mortgage finances for homes that have or will include accessory dwelling units. The federal government understands that we have an affordability challenge. This is one of the ways that they are trying to help. They're throwing money at this particular answer. I think we have to jump all over that, ladies and gentlemen. And a significant policy change. Now, understand, this was the FHA. Also, in a significant policy change, Fannie Mae has announced that it will accept the 5% down payments for owner-occupied 2, 3, and 4-unit homes. This marks a departure from the previous multifamily financing requirement of 15 to 25% down. So it used to be you have to get an FHA, and now they're even doing the FHA with the ADUs, the accessory dwelling units. But now even Fannie Mae is saying, hey, listen, if you buy a 2-family house, you buy a duplex, your parents live on one side, you live on the other side, we'll let you buy that house with 5% down. Again, ladies and gentlemen, it's eliminating some of the challenges. And I think that that's important that we understand that. We're looking for alternative sources of business right now. We're looking for alternative sources or alternative ways to help families to build our transaction counts up. Now, we have a very interesting industry. We don't get paid unless we help someone. And we can't make a lot of money unless we help a lot of people. So I know you might be concerned about your finances. The quickest way to not be concerned about your finance is to go out and help some people. And I'm telling you, this is a group of people that need help, people looking for multi-generational homes. As a matter of fact, if you're interested, this is what they're saying. If you're interested, this is what the newspapers are saying. If you're interested in multi-generational housing for your next move, you may want to consider talking to a trusted agent and a local lending company to find out how combined finances can help you get the right home for your needs. Newspapers are sending the people with this need to you. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please be prepared when they get to you. It's important that we realize that we can help families right now that maybe, again, we're off the radar over the last couple of years because things were so crazy. And even Bloomberg News just 2 weeks ago put this out: the key to boosting Latino home ownership. National policymakers, local leaders, and leading institutions hold the power not only to protect the recent strides made by Latino households, but also to accelerate progress and bolster our national economy. Latinos believe very strongly in multi-generational housing. So actually, you're working two different cohorts at the same time. The multi-generational, which we probably haven't been thinking about a lot over the last couple of years. And it might be that you haven't really spent enough time thinking about the Latino community, which is driving much of the housing and will continue to drive much of the housing going forward. We could kill two birds with one stone with this by helping a bunch of people. The private sector can expand access to credit by boosting language access in the mortgage and credit markets, improving underwriting of self-employed borrowers, and lending more to multi-generational households. We've already talked about that. Those mortgages are coming out. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're not familiar with this, virtually every single piece that KCM puts out, any content that KCM puts out, we have in Spanish. This is going to be a market that's going to drive the industry over the next 10 years. Get in now. Start helping those people right now. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I found this would be a pretty interesting stat. Percentage of each that believes owning a home is very important. The Hispanic community leads the way on that. The Hispanic community leads the way on that. So we have multi-generational families looking to buy a house that multi-generations can live in. We have the Latino, which is driving housing, and by any survey, any study, is going to continue to drive housing for the next 10 years in this country. We can get involved with both and really start doing the right thing. Not that we haven't been doing the right thing, but doing the right thing for that particular segment. Now I want to talk a little bit about net worth, because whenever we're talking about affordability, we always want to talk about what's the rent payment versus the mortgage payment. And right now, in the vast majority of the country, let's be honest, it's less expensive to rent than to buy. Now, I know if you start including the mortgage interest deduction, if you start including the property tax deduction, when you start doing those things, to a lot of people, it really is, the bottom line is better to own than to own than to rent. But a lot of people can't understand it because it's a very difficult concept to fully explain. Sure, your rent payment is going to be less expensive, and let's talk about rental mortgage being your monthly housing expense. It's going to be less expensive right now, today, and maybe for the next year, 2 years, 3 years. But ladies and gentlemen, if you bought a house today, you're virtually locked in your monthly housing expense because your mortgage payment doesn't skyrocket. And people will say, well, what about taxes, property taxes going up? Most municipalities are not going to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. They're going to raise property taxes, but they're going to do it within a percentage. They don't want a bunch of foreclosures in their market or a bunch of quick sales that are going to drive down property values, because that's how they get paid on property values. So really, your monthly housing expense, if you are an owner, remains virtually unchanged for the next 30 years. Let's assume you're rented. What's your rent payment 5 years from now versus today? What's your rent payment 10 years from now versus today? 20 years from now, 30 years from now. Matter of fact, 30 years from now, you're still going to be paying rent, but your mortgage will be paid off. And that's what people don't understand. It's not, people are trying to say, well, right now, today, it's cheaper to rent than to buy. Yeah, that's a snapshot today. If we look at the movie over the next 30 years, it doesn't play well for renting. And here's a graph I want to show you that kind of explains that. The Fed does a study every 3 years. It's called the study of consumer finances. And what comes out of that study, one of the things that comes out of that study, is the difference in net worth, the gap in net worth between homeowners and renters. And what we could see is going all the way back to 2010, right in the middle of the housing crash, when prices were plummeting. Still then, homeowners had much greater net worth than renters did. And as we go through the next study and the next study and the next study, and the last study that was just released about a month ago, which covered through 2022, the spread, that gap, is grown dramatically. Now, I'm not suggesting that last tick up from 2019 to 2022 is going to continue. That absolutely not. That had something to do with the pandemic, the rush in price appreciation during the pandemic. That line's going to flatten out. But what's going to happen to that green line? It's going to remain relatively flat. So the spread isn't going to really change much. It's going to increase slowly, like it did between 2010 and 2013. But it's still going to increase. What you sell helps families build their net worth. For the vast majority of families in this country, it's the #1 builder of their net worth. Now, we're going to break this down as more data comes available from that report. We'll break it down by age, because you'll say, well, because older people own more houses. Well, yeah, not exactly. No matter which age group you're in, you'll have more net worth if you are a homeowner versus a renter. And again, we'll bring you these stats as that data becomes available. Well, it's income levels. Richer people own houses. Well, no, not exactly. We've already shown, and we've looked at the original data. It appears that at every income level, a person who owns a house, going all the way down to the lowest income levels to the highest income levels, people who own houses have more net worth, no matter what their income is. But again, we'll break those down as they become available to us. But right now, I want to show you one of the reasons why maybe the net worth is that dramatic. And it's not just because the house went up. If you're a homeowner, you have access to other things. And I'm going to give you one example. The blue line is the U.S. small business applications in thousands. How many people started a business? The green line is the capital equity in billions. You don't have to worry about it in thousands and billions. You just have to look at the two lines. Because there is definitely some sort of connection. Now, I don't know if it's causation, correlation. People can argue that point. But this is what I know. When people's equity goes up, and tappable equity means 80% of the value of the home, they always want to keep 20%. So they're not, refinancing, right to their chin. They're keeping 20% equity. So we're talking about after they leave 20% equity, that's their tappable equity. And what do we know? The more equity you have, the more confident they are they're going to start a business. As the equity built, so did businesses. As equity started to fall off a little bit through the second half of last year when prices dropped some, Well, guess what? So do business applications. Ladies and gentlemen, part of the American dream is home ownership. Another part for many people is they want to be their own boss. They want to start their own business. And many businesses in this country started with taking an equity out of a house and starting the business in the garage of that house. And there's some pretty notable companies that did that. First of all, KCM started that way. I tapped into the equity to my house and we started that business in my garage. The garage was converted into like a bedroom prior to that, but basically it was where the garage was. Other small businesses that started out of their garage, little businesses like Apple, little businesses like Under Armour, little businesses like Fubu, Damon Jones's business. All right. So what we're looking at, ladies and gentlemen, is you're helping people build their net worth, which is giving them freedoms in so many different areas. I know you're getting beat up a little bit right now. People are taking swings at you because of a lot of things that are happening. Just remember what you do for a living. Remember the families you help. Remember the last family that you gave a key to at a closing table, key to their first home. Remember how they hugged you. Remember how they hugged each other. That's what we do for a living. All right, so we have to get back to work. Let's not worry about lawsuits. Let's not worry about all the craziness. Let's get back to work. Here's a 90-day plan. There are still people very, very nervous about where prices are going. Explain where home prices are and where they're headed. We've given you tons of information on that. Get the word out on net worth and offer a PEAR, PAIR. That's a professional equity assessment report. If you don't know what that is, go into KCM and look for it. We have a beautiful layout, a brochure that you fill out with the homeowner to determine their equity. People are shocked at the amount of equity they have in their home right now. Instead of offering a CMA on any way that you're marketing or prospecting, offer a professional equity assessment report. That's what they really want to know. Become more familiar with the multi-generational opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be a major opportunity, not this year, not next year, for the rest of your careers. Jump in. Become more familiar with the KCM offerings in Spanish. It's going to be really crucially important to you. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying you necessarily have to speak Spanish. I'm not saying that you necessarily have to hire someone on your team that's fluent in Spanish. Neither one of those ideas are bad ideas, but I'm not necessarily saying that. Because most people can speak English, but they like it better if you're speaking, any person would like it better if you were speaking in their language. If you decided to move to Japan and was buying a house in Japan, it would help you if the person that was there, assuming you didn't know how to speak Japanese, it would help you if the person there knew how to speak English. You would prefer dealing with that agent. But ladies and gentlemen, even if you don't speak Spanish, most people come into the country and they learn, or they're born here and they learn English. But maybe their parents didn't. Maybe that buyer's mother or that buyer's father is a little bit more confused. If you could hand to them what you're saying to their child, their adult child thinking about buying a house or selling a house, if you could hand to them that same information in Spanish so they could follow along, your goal. Absolutely go. Next, avoid the noise and get back to helping people. You don't get paid trying to figure out lawsuits. You don't get paid trying to defend yourself on social media. You get paid for one thing: helping people, helping families when they're buying or selling a house. That's what you get paid to do. You get paid to help people. avoid the noise, and get back to helping people. And ladies and gentlemen, right now, prospect, 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 whichever way you're doing it. Every Monday, we do a deep dive on one of the issues that I just talked to you about, or another issue that's extremely important. If you have an interest, it's Monday, 11 o'clock on Eastern time and 8 a.m. on the Pacific Coast. And it's at the Keeping Current Matters Facebook page. It's a Facebook Live every Monday morning. All right. It will give you a deeper dive in some of the issues that we've already covered and other issues that are crucially important to you building your business. Well, that's it for today. Again, the one thing that I want to make sure you understand is get back to work. Stop worrying about things that you have no control over. And realize you took a job that the only way you can get paid is to help someone. Go help. And as I say at the end of every single monthly market report for KCM, remember, ladies and gentlemen, keeping current matters.